Welcome to Deck Talk, ladies and gentlemen, and today is going to be a special episode. We're going to be taking a look at the meta post-Nerf. That's right. Recently, we had a change in the Hearthstone meta. Innervate got changed to basically being a counterfeit coin. Spreading Plague is now 6 mana. Kind of weakened that card's viability. Fiery Wind Axe, or War Axe, as some people might like to call it, was changed to 3 mana, now making a shitty Eagle Horn bow. And Hex and Murloc War Leader also got a little bit of a, slap to the face. So with these changes, we've seen some very interesting trends happening right now in the Hearthstone meta. Decks that were previously just a little too underpowered compared to the Tier 1 decks are now suddenly finding themselves riding on an all-time high. Alright, right now the meta is pretty much wide open for a lot of different things coming forward, and we're seeing some really strong indicators from a lot of classes. But today we're going to talk about one specific class, and one that I honestly feel is in a position to just very much dominate the shit out of everything. And what might that class be, you might be wondering? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's our good friend Mr. Rexxar. Yes, we're going to talk about Rexxar. So we've got 3 different decks here, one of which is going to be, the standard build that has existed before the nerf, and the other 2 are going to be some of the newer builds that have come out post-nerf. So let's get to the standardization just to refamiliarize you guys with what Hunter is, or quote-unquote was. Alright, so pre-nerf, this was pretty much one of the most consistent Hunter decks that existed. It operated on having a very nice curve and having some pretty big options that they could pull out. Tundra Rhino also playing a huge factor in a lot of shenanigans. This design is okay. I have found it to be not nearly as viable pre-nerf, and even post-nerf I still feel it's not overly that consistent, but the deck does work. All in all, you'll probably get about 56 to 65% win rate with this deck. And on the surface, that might be good. But mind you, this is over a long course of games. And you're going to get a lot of cycles where you're losing 5 and then maybe winning 5. And that kind of attrition takes a toll on the average player. And generally leaves people with a bad taste in their mouth. Now, truthfully, I gave this deck here about 30 games, and it won 17 of them, which, again, puts it over 50%, not happily, alright, not happily, but it gives you the baseline comparison to see where you can fix things. Now, there's an argument to say that this card right here, Galactic Crawler, may not be as needed, but I disagree with you guys on this, because Patches is still a very viable card in 2 specific classes, and technically 3 now, that it almost warrants having this card, because there's nothing better than getting a 2-mana 3/4 Ask a Shaman. Alright, so just going over the list, a couple things. The deck is pretty much similar to every other mid-range that has ever existed. Tracking making a big comeback. Deadly Shot also making a big comeback. A couple of the new cards here that have really made an impact. The Stitch Tracker. This card is probably like one of the sleeper hits for Hunter that nobody saw coming. After playing with it for some time, I can tell you right now, the amount of value I've gotten off this card is just insane, right? As I'm approaching up to, say, my turn 5 or turn 6, playing this down and getting the answer I need for those turns is really huge. Playing a high main on 6 is a pretty much must-do thing when you're playing Hunter. Being able to play down a couple other things that might also be impactful is a must-do thing. So getting those answers to where you can hit that curve nicely is great. This fills in a lot of blanks that Hunter has been having in its past quite nicely, and it makes the deck somewhat more consistent. One of the other new additions is Bone Mare. Truthfully, guys, Bone Mare has become basically the new Dr. Boom for the expansion. It's 7 mana, it's being used in so many damn decks right now. It's just an amazing card all around. So it makes some sense that Hunter would also play around with it as well. Truth be told, it's just a great card. And of course, we've got high main because, high main. Now, we're going to take a look at a couple decks here. And the first one we're going to take a look at is a more specialized version that was piloted by Zalay for a tournament that he played yesterday, as a matter of fact, and ended up winning $150 out of that tournament. Now, again, this was a multiple deck tournament, and this was just one of the decks that helped propel him to winning it. Alright, so here we've got your standard, it says mid-range hunter, but truthfully it's more of a hybrid hunter. It's got a little bit of mid, but a lot of aggression in the beginning to really push forward its agenda. Now, as you can tell, there's a massive difference between this deck and the previous one we just saw. Previous deck only had 2 alley cats and tracking for 1 mana cost cards. This one has both of those, and has patches, has Hungry Crab, has Bloodsail Corsair. Like, it's got a ton more 1-drop minions to play. In fact, it has 5 more 1-drop minions it could play. Now, just because it went heavy in the early game doesn't mean it really lessened itself in the mid or late game. Just took away a couple interesting features. It's still keeping the Stitch Tracker, and it's adding in the Bittertide Hydra. You're losing the Bone Mare, but everything else is relatively the same, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to tell you right now, after playing this variant, I found that this version is pretty consistent on the ladder. Truthfully, when you have 7 cards that you could play on turn 1, it's really impactful. Now, there might be someone who wants to argue the fact, like, yeah, but I mean, you don't have a Direwolf Alpha, you don't have this, that, and the other. So, I mean, all those early 1-drops you're not going to really be able to benefit on if they get, like, a much bigger minion and so on. No Hunter's Mark, no this, that, and the other. This is true, but again, you're a hunter. Your sole job is to push face damage and do it pretty consistently. And I can tell you right now, this deck does that pretty damn consistently. Now, let's go and take a look at some game footage of this, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're talking about here. Alright, so in this match, we're up against the Priest. Now, Priests have a couple different viable builds that they've been running recently. Highlander Priest has been very, very popular, and there are a couple of indicator signs that I always look forward to see if it is that. And if it is, then we could be a little bit more flexible. But if it isn't, then we have to play a little bit more cautiously. Our mulligan here kind of, you know, drew blank. 7 1-drops and we didn't get a single one on a mulligan. We could have mulliganed a little bit more aggressively, but I didn't want to throw away the 2s or the 3s, especially with coin in hand. And I like having Deadly Shot on the man, so it is what it is. Alright, so we're just waiting for things to kick off. This Priest played extremely slow the entire game, and that's fine. And oh, look at that, we have 7 1-drops. We're bound to get one on the top deck. Simple math here, and I'm not going to do it because that's just going to take too much time. Alright, so we bring out the Hungry Crab. May not seem like the greatest option out there, a 1-2, not very spectacular, but guess what, guys? It actually is pretty damn decent. Remember, Hydrologist is still a thing, alright? And there are still people playing with Murlocs. Okay, it does happen. And remember, Shamans, they like using that 1 totem, so you're always going to get value off that card. Alright, so we do the trade, and we bring out the 2-3. Now, I'm worried about one specific card here. As you can see, we've got the Kindly Grandmother, and I'm worried about any kind of Potion of Madness shenanigans, because I don't really want to lose this and then have it be used as trade bait, because that would be completely devastating to my agenda. Alright, so he goes with the Northshire Cleric. Now, I have a couple ways I can deal with this very, very simply. And to some degree, I probably should have done that, but instead, we went this route. I like this route a lot better. It allows us to keep the board, and it'll force him to have to make some choices here, which will be, in general, beneficial to us. Alright, so here we are hitting the 4 mana, and again, I'm seeing this, and this is not looking like most of the Highlander decks I've ever seen, so I'm a little confused, but I started realizing, hey, you know what, this is actually a pretty good deal. Alright, if you're running with this and you can get it buffed, then all of a sudden you're going to have a source of damage that can keep reoccurring, and that's good. Now here comes a decision that many of you are going to say, no, Shiv, you played this wrong. And you might be right. I may have played this wrong. I honestly may have played this wrong. But I started thinking, he's like, you know what, I am Hunter, and if I keep doing the trade game, I'm never going to get anywhere. So I need to start being a little bit more aggressive. So we removed his AoE generator and just started pushing our face agenda. Now, he's going to have to start looking at things and figuring out how he wants to do this. He uses Spirit Lash, which pretty much just negated that damage I did mostly. Now he's going to use his hero power here to heal up, bring this back up to a 3-4. Kind of annoying to deal with. And of course, here we go. Bittertide Hydra on 5. There's a couple rules when playing these new Hunter decks. If on 5 you can play Bittertide Hydra, you play Bittertide Hydra. On 6, you play the Highmane. If you can hit both of those, 5 and 6, you pretty much are going to win about 70% of the time. Not 100%, but about 70% of the time. Now, what I'm worried about the most is definitely going to be a Shadow Word Death here. But again, I'm kind of banking on the fact that this is a Highlander-based deck. And he gets this Animal Companion. I'm sitting here going, this sucks. We are in a really bad position from this play. Alright. So we go with our own Animal Companion, and it's always Huffer. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the 3-4. We're going to use Deadly Shot here, clear off his board. We take out that. We're going to trade Huffer there. Now, some of you may want to argue, Shiv, you should have just taken 12 to the face. That was a viability. It would have actually equaled everything out, but we opted not to. Alright, so Shadow Word, Death off the top deck. I'm happy to see that. That means he's only got one other way of dealing with anything that is of a high value as that is. So we're going to go with the tracking just to see if we can get a Highmane. We see a Highmane, but we also get Kill Command. And I'm thinking, you know what? No. I'm going to do this. We're going to play it safe. We're going to rebuild the board here and just do 2 damage. And it also kind of signals that, like, hey, I don't really have too much I can really do, blah, 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 blah. And we're kind of getting set up here, waiting to see what his play is, because 8 is a very interesting transition point, and he goes with the Shadow Reaper Anduin, and I am so happy to see this. He just basically threw away one of his only methods he will have left to deal with my big minion, unless he has the Sunstrider in his deck. Alright, so at this point, we're going wide, very, very wide. Mostly because I want him to kind of focus on dealing with those kindly grandmothers than anything else. And meanwhile, we're going to keep pushing for damage because he can't heal any of it back now. In theory, there is still greater potions and things of that nature. But right now, we're in a really good position. It may not seem like it as we're down 5 life, but in reality, we're in a really good position. Now, the priest's first action needs to be hero power in every step of the way here. Unless he's got Raza the Unchained. And then it's play Raza, then hero power, then do something else, then hero power. That sequencing kind of screws with people, but it is what it is. Argument's sake, you could just go hero power Raza, but eh. So he doesn't have anything else he could do. He already blew his last removal tool, and I'm pretty sure this is a Highlander deck. So we get to just rip out that Bittertide Hydra like it was nothing. And I'm starting to look at this, and I'm starting to do math here. And I'm wondering, is it possible for him to kill the Bittertide Hydra? Yes, it's absolutely possible for him to kill the Bittertide Hydra. He'd also do 12 damage to my face. This is a very scary situation. But we're kind of banking on being able to pull this off. And we're hoping our opponent really doesn't start thinking in this kind of depth strategy. So here he goes with the attack first. And here comes Raza the Unchained. At this point, he could have done some real dirty. But instead, he's going after my kindly grandmothers. And I'm looking at this going, okay, sure, why not? And here comes the circle, basically so he can use his hero power again. Which again, you know, that's kind of how this works. He is mitigating it down. And so now he's only looking at 9 on the board versus 12. So we have the win right here, hands down. Because he was unable to deal with the Bittertide Hydra. Simple as that. And that is GG. We give him the well played and we move on, ladies and gentlemen. Alright. So, I mean, that is pretty much how that deck plays. We didn't really get to see any cool kind of shenanigans involving the Bloodsail Corsair or any kind of Hungry Crab and all that. So, most of the time, those are going to be kind of subpar in playing. But in tournament play, it does make a little bit more sense because you're kind of teching against some of the more aggressive stuff that's out there. And, guys, remember, just because War Axe is gone doesn't mean pirates are out of the meta. I run into several people still trying to make Pirate Warrior work. All right, it does happen quite a bit. So never discount that card. Alright, so that was the Zalae mid-range or Zalae hybrid, however you want to call it. But now we're going to look at the Pheno hybrid. Now this is one that I came across today, and I only got to put about 10 games in testing, and I found that the deck is actually pretty good. Alright, so unlike the Zalae deck, it does not run a ton of 1-drops. Instead, it runs a total of 3 1-drop minions, 1 tracking, and then everything else is in the 2 to 3. Basically saying, yeah, having an early game is good, but going too much into there creates a kind of inconsistency of being able to transition effectively into your mid to late game. The basic premise here is you never want to be at like turn 7 or 8 and you've been playing super aggressive and you draw 1-drop. That's a horrible fucking feeling. So I kind of understand that logic, and I kind of agree with it. And when playing this deck in the 10 games that I gave, I got 9 wins in a row. I was like, oh, wow, this is good. In the mirror matches, I actually did a lot better. So let's go over the deck and look at some of the cool differences here. Still got the Alley Cat using Firefly. No patches or any kind of shenanigans there, so we're removing that weakness. Galaka Crawler is still in this deck. We're also adding a Direwolf Alpha to kind of give a little bit of trade value in the early game. Kindly Grandmothers, Scavenging Hyenas, Animal Companions, all pretty much standard here. We're adding in the Bear Shark. Yes, the Bear Shark. This is one of my favorite cards. If ever there was a sci-fi channel movie waiting to happen, it is Bear Shark. I love this card. So 3 mana for a 4/3, that's pretty good stats on its own. Now throw in the fact that it can't be targeted by hero powers. Yeah. Alright, this card is just fucking sick on a good day. Being able to get it out on turn 2 with coin just is sick. Pure sickness. And look at that animation. That's just awesome. Alright, Deadly Shot, again, making an appearance. The card is just super powerful in this meta right now. Kill commands, Eagle Horn Bows, Unleash the Hounds. Yes, because we are running with the Scavenging Hyena, and some late game plays with Scavenging Hyena and Unleash the Hounds is always a good thing. Houndmaster, Bittertide Hydra, and Savannah Highmane. So, pardon me, we're taking the similar back-end approach that Zalae took, changing up the early game and a little bit of the mid-game, not too much, to make a more consistent deck. And like I said, guys, I've had a lot of fun with this deck. It's actually pretty damn effective. So let's go ahead and let's get to this play footage. Alright. In this match, we're up against the now debased Druid. And I say debased in the most ever so kindest of ways. Yes, I could have actually said go fuck yourself, you jade piece of shit, but you know, hey, we're trying to be nice. Alright, so we get lucky, we get the Alley Cat in the opener, woohoo, and we get the Scavenging Hyena. Now, this is Druid, and we always have to worry about the fact that they do have answers to Scavenging Hyena, but we got a second one, so we're like, let's go. Alright, we're just going to follow curve and keep pushing that agenda. Even if the Druid is able to deal with the Scavenging Hyena when it comes down, they're not developing their board, and that kind of plays to the Hunter quite a lot. He goes for the Wild Growth, boom, and he used his coin to get there, which means he's going to have 3 mana next turn. So I'm expecting the Jade Blossom here, and by throwing out the Scavenging Hyena, he's really going to put himself in a bad situation. It's like, okay, if I do this now, then he's just going to trade, and I get nothing, so he's forced to Wrath here. Alright, so that interrupts his ramping process quite a bit, but not too much. Because we're going to throw out another one because no fucks given. We're just going to keep pushing that face damage. So I'm sitting here going, does he have another one? No, he's got the swipe. If ever there was an unlucky set of circumstances, it was right there. So we go with the Kindly Grandmother and pushing more damage. Every chance we can to hit that hero power, we are doing it. Because we're constantly putting pressure on the Druid's face. Now the Druid is sitting here and he's going to have to make some pretty hard decisions. And that decision is whether or not he wants to ramp even more. And he goes with the Nourish and he goes for the mana crystals. He's taking up himself up to 7, and he hits the wild growth. This is telling me he's on that ultimate infestation plan. He wants to get that going, but we go ahead and rip out that Bittertide Hydra. Go right ahead. Play that ultimate infestation. It won't matter. Now, seeing this, he goes to do a Wrath on it, trying to draw more options, maybe get some sort of taunt that he could throw down, but he already had a taunt, so it really didn't matter. And he's thinking he's going to be able to hide behind this? No, sir. I don't think so. Now, we could have done this a couple different ways, but I like to hold on to my kill commands till they're absolutely needed. So we get the tracking. We're going to go ahead and do the tracking first, see what we can get here. And we get the Crackling Razor Maw, and this opens up a real big opportunity, so we're going to take that. We go with the Deadly Shot to remove the taunt, and we're hoping for Wind Fury right here, ladies and gentlemen. This could have just been wrecking, but instead we get the +3 attack, and I'm okay with that. Boom. 12 more damage to the dome. Just wrecking everything we possibly can. Now, here comes the ultimate infestation, which won't do jack. I mean, simple math here. Just looking at what's on the board. Right? We have 15 on the board plus hero power equals 17. So this was kind of basically like, well, fuck it. I went this deep just to go for this one thing, so I'm going to do it anyway. But he'd already lost at this point. And being the good sportsman I am, I figure, fuck it. Let's just add more injury to his face. And he's not having it. Nope. But we still tell him, well played. So yes, that is the Pheno Hybrid deck. Between the two, like the Zalae and the Pheno Hybrid, I'm still kind of in between on which one I like the most. I will say that they both have some pretty good advantages, but if I had to make a choice right here now, I'd say the Pheno Hybrid is one of the better hunter decks that exists right now. But hey, guys, why don't you let me know what you think down below in the comment section. I want you guys to play some of these decks and let me know what you think is a better deck. You know, what is your experience with it? Which one do you think was better? And so on. Let me know your opinion. Again, I'm biased. I like the Pheno Hybrid, but I love Zalae's deck as well. But I want to know what you guys think. Is there any other kind of cool tech options you've been messing around with Hunter that's been working for you? Let me know down below. And remember, guys, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe. It lets me know you care, and it actually does help out. Anyway, till next time, this is Shiv saying, stay safe, have fun, may RNGs bless you, and I'm out of here.